Do you love causing mass confusion, going on chases, and juking the angles out of the killer? Consider yourself the bamboozling master and want to put your movement skills to the test? Love play Mirage in Apex Legends? Then 007N7 is just the right character for you. Just simply purchase 007N7, who I'll be referring to as N7 for the sake of this video, for 500 player points at the shop and run wild. N7 is infamous for using exploits to mess up popular Roblox games, such as work at a pizza place, being part of a hacker group named Team Cool Kid. Does that sound familiar? Well, you'll be right, because he is actually Cool Kid's dad. After finding Cool Kid on his doorstep one day, N7 retired from being a hacker to become a father instead. Cool Kid, continuing in his father's footsteps, continued to wreak havoc before going missing. Cool Kid still recognizes N7 as his father in Forsaken, and it is actually the reason why N7 has the dumb shirt on, because his son thinks it's funny. Like, it's literally in every skin. He also feels guilty for his past actions, which can be seen through his interactions with the other survivors like Elliot and Builderman. But now that you know who he is, let's learn how to play him, shall we? N7's first ability is Clone. But if you know Mirage from Apex Legends, we all know it as Bamboozle. You send out a clone of yourself with the same HP as you who lives for 10 seconds before flopping over, while you gain invisibility 4 and undetectable for 4 seconds to fool killers. Well, for the most part. If the killer hits your clone, you'll be notified if you have money alerts on. Now, this may fool big ol' noobs, but Forsaken Thirsty Boy Tryhard McGee's won't fall for your tricks. Yeah, I took that one from Macro. Anyways, if the killer does fall for it, they will be the perfect target for you to annoy and you practically won't lose. But bamboozling is hard, so here's some tips to help you out. Always make sure to break line of sight from the killer, or at least get into their proximity vision. That's because it's important to note that your invisibility isn't Minecraft levels of invisibility, but just makes you translucent, and a good killer will still see you and track you very easily. While the dummy skin does help and practically doubles the effectiveness of your invisibility, if you clone right in front of the killer, yeah, there's no helping you there. Instead, use your clones when turning corners or loop around tall structures where the killer won't be able to see you. This will create illusions that you're still running away and may fool the killer into chasing the clone, as they won't be able to see you going behind a wall. You can also try to tuck into a corner that will end up behind the killer's line of sight, as they most likely won't notice you there even if they are in third person and can slightly see behind them. Do switch it up though, as competent killers may just pre-check common locations and most likely won't fall for it twice. Cloning in dark areas will also cloak you even more, especially if you have a dark skin, making you blend into the shadows. If the killer is competent, you can also try and act like a clone yourself to throw them off. I usually like to use this in combination with quickly turning corners, making the killer think that I sent a clone in the opposite direction when it's really just me. Then, when they quickly check the corner and realize that I'm not there, I turn another corner behind them and then actually clone, which while extremely difficult to pull off, becomes even harder to track. Some maps are better for this trick than others, but you can usually find a good place to bamboozle the killer as long as you disappear from sight. You can also fake sending out a clone, but quickly moving your body in an unnatural way, making it seem like you sent a clone out and tucked into a corner when you really didn't, which might make the killers hesitant to chase you off a cliff if you have cover to make it convincing enough. Or you can do the opposite, faking yourself going off a cliff or into a hole, and hopefully tricking the killer to fall down there while you stay up top. It's so funny if you can do it properly. Keep in mind to only do this against sweats though, as the noobs, like I said earlier, will chase anything and everything. Also, your clone never stops sprinting, so make sure you have enough stamina to actually get away while acting like a clone, as slowing down to a walk instantly gives you away. You can also follow behind your clone and use your clone as a way of breaking line of sight until you can get behind cover. Make sure to only really do it in the first 2 seconds of the clone spawning though, as after that the clone will instantly ragdoll if you touch it and give you weakness. The ragdoll is audible too, which can expose you to the killer. If you're dragging attention, you can also use the clone on cursor mode to bait out the killer or even try to juke them using the clone. This can help give your teammates time to run away or an opportunity to stun the killer. You can also help your teammates by sending out the clone to help block shots from buildings, as your clones has hit priority over buildings. However, you have hit priority over your clones, so you can't use them to body block you. If you're low, you can try to clone parry by sending out your clone towards the killer and hoping that they'll hit it, in which it'll force them into a kill animation and allow you extra time to escape. You can also use your clone into Cool Kid's Walk Speed Override, Jason's Gashing Wound, or John Doe's Digital Footprint Traps, but be careful with the last one, as John Doe will still be alerted and gain speed even though it's your clone that triggered it. N7's second ability is Cool GUI, which allows him to teleport to the farthest survivor spawn from your current location. This is not the farthest location from the killer, as I've learned the hard way.
Oh my god!
It takes 6 seconds of you standing practically still, and you can't cancel it once you activated it unless you're by your generator, so be careful when you decide to use it. It also gets cancelled if you get hit, so make sure you're far enough away before getting clipped at the last second before vanishing, as it puts you in a terrible position. This ability also ties into his passive, which allows you to see where you'll be teleporting to. The Cool GUI is mainly used as a preparation device, as it's much harder to time it well for an escape. The best time to use it is towards the start of the round if you're trying to cover distance fast and you know the killer isn't near you or the location you're going to, right after tricking the killer with your clone and they follow after your clone, or during Last Man Standing, also known as LMS. Make sure to familiarize yourself with the different survivor spawns as you play, as understanding where you'll end up after teleporting is pretty important, so you know how to lead the killer away from where you'll spawn in, or how to escape after teleporting. If the killer themselves is a super tryhard, they might attempt to read your teleports, but it's really difficult to do and you'll probably never see it. If they do though, you can camp by a generator to bait the killer into thinking you're going to teleport, and then you can cancel it. What's more likely to happen though is the killer might try and use a ranged attack on you, so make sure you're in a location where you can also counter that as well. All killers have some type of wall hack ability, and so it might be smart to first bait out that ability before using your Cool GUI. This can be done during the ability's cooldown and you've tricked the killer, proccing your clone right before the killer uses their ability to remain undetectable, or in the case of 1x Cubed, you can use it in their face and their blurry vision will completely screw them over. You can also use it after teleporting, especially if the killer has eyes on you right before you teleported, as they'll most likely proc their ability once you've teleported to relocate you. Switch up the timing a bit, especially if you're doing it multiple times, because the killer might try to wait out that first 4 seconds. So in those cases, try cloning a bit later. Inject is N7's last ability, and it pairs directly with his clone ability. There are 3 types of movements that it can allow his clone to do. First is Aimless, where the clone will act like a bot and run randomly. Second is Pathfinding, where the clone will pathfind itself to the farthest survivor spawn. It's the same location marked by your passive ability. And third is Cursor, which makes the clone move towards the player's cursor. If you are in shift lock, the clone will continue running in the direction your camera is pointing. While a lot of people like to hate on Aimless mode, I think it's very useful and honestly, I use it the most. However, it is important to recognize that your playstyle will heavily affect which movement style will benefit you the most, so let's look at why I use these different settings. I usually keep my clones on Aimless if I'm also aimlessly running around and I'm not actively planning out something. People often say that Aimless look way too much like a bot and it's too easy to figure out, but I think that works to our favor. First of all, when you're up against a noob killer, they won't be able to tell despite the clone running into a wall. Trust, they will still go for it. Then you might say against any pro, they would instantly know it's a clone if it's on Aimless, right? Wrong! They will know it's a clone regardless of what mode you put it on. This is because chasing a clone doesn't play the chase music, which killers can easily use to alert them that they're chasing the wrong person, and they will double back regardless of how well the clone moves. There is another way, but I'm no snitch, so I'm not gonna tell you guys, in order to keep N7 more effective. Second, if you want to act like an aimless clone, then you have to first convince the killer you're using aimless clones. If they can tell by how your clones move that they're not on aimless, then all of a sudden you start running weirdly, they're gonna know that you're trying to act as the clone. If you think that there's no way they can tell the difference or take the risk, then aimless clones will work no matter what. It's also the easiest clone to use in my opinion. If I'm running, as long as my body is positioned in the place I want the clone to start running, I can easily send it out and not have to worry about it at all, and find a place to regain my stamina before the killer returns. The second mode is Pathfinding, which is also a really good option. It's a slightly better version of Aimless, allowing the clone to look a lot more natural when running around. I usually use this if I haven't engaged with the killer already, or if I'm camping out in a spot and I want to lead the killer somewhere else. The reason I don't have this on by default is because if I'm running towards the farthest survivor spawn and send out the clone is just gonna start following me even if I want to send it in the opposite direction. And since I usually make a ton of turns and weaves, having my clones always run off in a singular direction can throw off my own jukes if I'm not intentionally planning out where I will go in relation to my clone. If you're planning to just make a quick getaway with your cool GOI as well, and the killer chases your clone, it will just lead them right back to you, so definitely don't have this on if you're planning to teleport. The third mode is Cursor, which I usually use when I'm not being chased, as it gives me a lot more time to handle my cursor. If I haven't engaged the killer yet and want to drag his attention away from teammates, I usually use a clone on Cursor to try and circle or juke them out, making it the most realistic clone as you're actually controlling them. If I use Cursor, I usually have a destination in mind that I want my clone to go, or if I want to keep my clone in a specific spot to bait out attacks. I usually don't use it when trying to get away, as it might just make the clone come right back to you, especially if you're looping and your cursor is always near your player, and if I'm not looking, it usually gets stuck in a wall somewhere. N7 is a survivalist, and one of the strongest, especially since his clones don't take too long to recharge. A skilled N7 can always make the killer doubt who they're really going after, which can always provide an opening for you to regain stamina and continue running. So here are some pro tips so you can use him to his best potential. First, killers usually ignore N7's early game as they pose no threat to them, unlike a Schletzky or a Chance, so they will usually ignore you if they have another target who is on lower HP. This means that if you're not being targeted, you can't really do much to help, so instead, get those generators done ASAP so you can at least provide some help to the team, since his kit is pretty selfish. However, if you are able to divert attention, then you can try and help take off pressure from teammates by stalling out the killer for a bit. This will depend on your team composition and how they play though, as sometimes you'll take a good 30 seconds off of your clone, making the killer run in circles just for your teammates to not run away and then add that 30 seconds right back. Which leads to my next tip, don't aggro the killer too much as you really need to save your health for late game. N7's playstyle is often very 50-50, relying on the killer to pick the wrong person to chase after or juke them out in close range. If you're low, you might just get unlucky and the killer will hit you based on chance instead of your clone, so unless you find a medkit, try to minimize damage that you take early on. Third tip, if your teammates suck, then you might just have to stall out until LMS. The player health bars are your best friend here, allowing you to see right when the last teammate is about to lose, and before that happens, make sure you have your abilities at the ready and you position yourself both far from the farthest survivor point and the killer. This way, you can clone right before LMS starts, and the killer will have no clue where you are, giving you an ample amount of time to teleport or wait them out. You can also choose to teleport a few seconds after LMS starts, letting the killer run towards you and teleporting away right before they can actually find you, which forces them to run all the way back. Then you can choose to clone early or right when the killer shows up in order to hide yourself, making it nearly impossible to track you down. Since most killers know this, they will usually try to target you right before LMS to ensure that no N7 will ever make it there. If that happens, make sure to be prepared for it, then try to get a cool GI off the normal way by juking out the killer and stall just like you would in LMS. Keep in mind you're at a disadvantage here though, since LMS music will play regardless if they're chasing you or a clone, but the normal chase music won't, and so they'll be able to more easily sniff out the real you. Fourth tip, your clones refresh faster than Jason's raging pace, and only slightly slower than the other killer's wall hack abilities. This means that if played well, they can practically stay hidden the entire game and they won't be able to get your location at all. Make good use of sound cues and understand the cooldowns of other abilities to ensure that you can always play yours to counter them. And the final tip is to play unpredictably. Most N7 mains stay where they teleport to, but I love sending out a clone to bait out a wall hack ability before running in the complete opposite direction, making it impossible to find where I am. This is especially important if you're playing in one lobby for an extended amount of time, which allows the killers to learn your general playstyle, so every few rounds switch up your playstyle. Rather than teleporting then cloning, clone first and teleport later. Break some of the rules and intentionally make some bad plays to throw off the killer. If you play well, there's almost always a way for you to win. But what do you guys think? Do you think N7's too good and needs nerfs, too bad needs buffs, or that he's perfectly fine where he is now? Let me know in the comments below. And also, I'm planning to make this into a series, so if you want to see another survivor or have some tips for N7 of your own, make sure to drop it there as well. We also have a channel Discord, so if you want to contribute your tips for other survivors for future videos, make sure to hop in with the link down in the description. I hope you learned something new, and if you did, please drop a like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!